Welcome to Shere Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos.
The main character, after dying inside of his previous life, he wakes up as Shere Khan from the Jungle Books inside of Lion King. What is Shere Khan gonna do inside of the Lion King?
Lion King, what if I am Shere Khan? Chapter 1. Last thought was a tiger. I didn't see the light change. Didn't see the car stopped at the other side of the intersection. Didn't hear the traffic rumble low through the gut of the street. I wasn't looking. I was on my phone. The summer was loud, not with noise, though there was plenty of that, but with heat, with texture, a kind of sweaty, slow drag to the air that made everyone squint and breathe shallow. I was walking, head down, scrolling. It started with some idiot's post. Shere Khan wouldn't last a day in the Lion King world. Scar Solo's lol. And that was it. That was the moment. I felt it, this little flicker of heat in my chest, sharper than the weather, heavier than my bag slung over one shoulder. Annoyance. No, offense. Not at the poster, but at the wrongness. The sheer absurdity of the take. I typed as I walked. My thumb moved on instinct. Scar is a schemer. He manipulates hyenas and hides behind lies. Shere Khan doesn't manipulate. He walks into a room and every animal leaves. He's a real predator. Scar isn't even a good lion. Mufasa would have wrecked him in 10 seconds. Send. Another reply came in before I even hit the other curb. Khan got beat by a kid with a torch face with tears of joy. I could feel my jaw clench, not at the emoji, at the lazy narrative take. Mowgli didn't beat Shere Khan with strength, he used fire. Fear. Shere Khan lost to symbolism, to theme, not a fair fight, not even a real loss. That was writing. I was already typing again. That's a false comparison. Fire is not a character. Mowgli didn't beat him, the jungle's rules did. Scar never had to face anything on that level. He just lied his way to power and got thrown off a rock when it ran out. That's when I stepped into the crosswalk. I didn't look, didn't hear the truck until it was already there. There was a sound, short, mechanical, a honk but not frantic, just tight, like a curse, like the trucker knew he wasn't going to stop in time. I looked up. The white of the truck filled everything. I didn't even drop my phone. It happened too fast, or maybe just fast enough. My body didn't understand what was happening, but something inside me did. Some cold, sharp instinct deeper than breath. I had enough time for one thought. Shere Khan would have dodged. And then it hit me. No pain. No sound. Just cut. Like the world let go of me mid-step. No wind, no light, nothing. It wasn't darkness. Darkness is something. This was less. No thoughts. No breath. No body. Just gone. Chapter 2. Stripes on the Savannah. I woke up with weight. Real, enormous weight. Not like a blanket or pressure on my chest, but something inside me. Something heavy behind the ribs, in the jaw, through the shoulders. I didn't open my eyes right away. I didn't move. I felt the pull of muscle that wasn't mine. The length of my spine was stretched, taut, as if coiled by something used to crouching low, staying silent, and then killing fast. Breathing came before thought. The air was dry, warmer than any city, but it didn't feel dead. It smelled of dust and rock, of warm wind carrying earth and sweat. It wasn't the stink of diesel and sidewalk trash. It was cleaner, sharper, realer. When I opened my eyes, the sky burned orange. The sun was low, slanting across a wide stretch of cracked earth and golden brush. I was high, on a ridge of stone, angled down toward a clearing. I didn't know how I got here. I didn't know why I was alive. I just knew I wasn't where I'd been. My body shifted when I pushed up. The motion startled me, huge shoulders, the tight snap of muscle in my forelimbs, claws scraping stone without meaning to. My arms, no, my front legs, moved too easily. Smooth, natural. My back legs locked under me and I stood without needing to balance. I didn't have to look. I knew. The way my tail flicked, the way I could feel my jaw hang slightly open, fangs wet in the air, tongue hot in my mouth. I was massive. I was heavy. I was Shere Khan. And then I heard voices. Below. I stepped forward, claws tapping the edge of the stone. There was a cliff, and below it, chaos. Not shouting, not panic, but a scene, one that I recognized immediately. I froze, staring. Scar stood tall on a ridge lower than mine, near a ledge that dropped into the canyon. His mane rippled slightly in the dry wind, blood dark on one paw. Beside him stood a cub, tiny, golden, trembling. His face was twisted. Grief. And beside him, Mufasa. Broken, still. His body lay like someone had dropped a statue and let it split on impact. My heart stopped. I know this. I know exactly what this is. Scar had just let Mufasa fall. Simba had just watched his father die. This was the moment, the fulcrum, the cut that split the story in two. I turned slowly. My shadow stretched long behind me, striping the stone. And then I laughed, not loud, not human, a low, contented sound. I looked down at my paws, massive, striped, perfect. The claws extended on instinct, flexing into the rock. I didn't care how I got here. I didn't care if it made sense. I had Shere Khan's body, his strength, his size, his power. But I had my mind. And I was in the Lion King world. Which meant I was stronger than every lion here. Smarter than Scar. Faster than Mufasa. And there was no fire to stop me. No Mowgli, no torch. My body was a weapon, and I could do whatever I wanted. I moved down the slope, slow and steady, not hiding myself. My paw steps echoed on the stone. Scar looked up, his eyes narrowed. He didn't recognize me. Of course he didn't. He'd never seen anything like me. His lips curled slightly, but there was uncertainty behind the look. Simba stared, frozen, too young to run. Mufasa's blood still clung to his fur. And I stood above them. Predator, alone, complete. I could kill Scar right now. I could kill both of them if I wanted. Or I could smile, say nothing, watch, let things unfold with me sitting in the shade of this twisted kingdom, waiting for the right moment to move. Every choice led to control. I licked my teeth and sat down at the edge of the ledge. This world didn't belong to lions anymore. It belonged to me. Chapter 3. A stranger cast in shadow. I walked down from the ridge, slow and deliberate. The sun was falling behind me now, casting my shadow long across the stone, warping as it stretched toward the ledge below where Scar stood. The breeze shifted, dry, touched faintly with blood, and brought the sharp scent of fresh death up into my nose. Mufasa's body lay still. Scar didn't look down at him. He looked up at me. His face tightened. He didn't move, not at first. Then he turned, halfway, just enough to face the cub. Run, Scar said, voice low, almost gentle. Run away, Simba, and never come back. The words echoed. He meant them, not with pity, but calculation. I saw it in the way his tail flicked once, then stilled. Simba hesitated. The cub looked between us, his dead father, the uncle who stood above him, and me, something new, something unnatural. His paws shifted. He looked like he might ask a question, but I didn't give him the chance. I kept walking forward. He ran. Dust scattered as his small form vanished between the rocks, down the slope, into the gully and beyond. Scar didn't stop him. He didn't watch him go. His eyes were on me now. I stopped 10 feet from him. The wind pushed between us, dry and silent. Scar tilted his head slowly. I don't recognize you, he said. His tone wasn't hostile. It wasn't welcoming either. I came from far east, I said, my voice low, smooth and steady. I let it hang in the air with a soft growl at the edge, just enough to make his ears twitch. Much farther than your borders. I saw the rock, the herds, the land, and I decided it was a place worth resting in. Scar looked at Mufasa's body for the first time since I arrived. You came at a transitional time. I didn't blink, so I see. Scar stepped closer, not aggressively, but like he was testing the ground. His eyes swept my form. He tried not to look unsettled, but it was written all over his muscles. The way his paws stayed wide on the ground, how his back legs twitched to adjust weight. He had never seen anything like me. Tiger, he said. I nodded once. I've heard that name from others, in the jungle. You're not from the savannah, Scar said. Not from the elephant graveyard, not from any of the borderlands. His voice turned colder, which means you don't have a place here. I stepped forward once. One paw, soft impact. Scar stiffened slightly. His ears twitched again. I let my eyes move to his neck, his shoulder, the side of his rib cage. I knew the points. I knew the weaknesses, but I didn't move. I didn't come to challenge you, I said calmly. I have no interest in thrones. I came because I like the heat, I like space, and I saw no one strong enough to stop me from staying. Scar's jaw flexed, but he didn't speak. I sat. The sound of my weight settling into the stone was louder than anything else. I didn't blink, I just watched him, like prey, like I always had. Scar swallowed once, quiet and shallow. There's no need for hostility, he said. I'm not a fool, you're clearly formidable. Mai said, that's generous of you. He looked at me, he was calculating, always, even now. I've just inherited this land, he said. Mufasa had many followers. There will be adjustment. I can't have disruptions. Strangers stirring unrest. I didn't stir anything, I said. You pushed the king. The cub ran. All I did was walk. That made him flinch. It was small, barely a twitch, but it was real. You watched. I saw enough. Do you intend to tell anyone? I let the pause stretch. No. His body eased slightly, but not all the way. I smiled with my eyes. Not because I care about your secrets, I just don't find them interesting. Scar exhaled, almost a laugh but bitter. You are like them. Who? The old lions from the north, the ones who came before us. Brutal, uninterested in talk, never stayed long. I stay where I like, I said. If that's a problem, say so, now. Scar hesitated, then he slowly shook his head. No, no problem. I don't mind a new shadow in the land, as long as it stays out of the sun. I stay where I choose, I repeated, voice lower, and I walk where I please. We held each other's gaze. Something passed between us, mutual tolerance, thin and sharp. I could feel his suspicion, but also his caution. He knew I wasn't like him. I didn't play his kind of game. That made me dangerous, but it also made me useful, at least for now. Finally, he nodded once. If you want a place, Scar said, take the West Cliffs. They're barren, too dry for lions. The hyenas don't roam that far. I don't mind bones, I said. I didn't think you would. He turned and began walking away from Mufasa's corpse without a second glance. As he passed me, he paused just once. If you change your mind about staying quiet. I met his eyes. He didn't finish the sentence. He just walked. I stood there for a long time after, letting the last of the day's heat sink into my bones. I didn't look at Mufasa again. I didn't care what happened to the body. That part of the story was done. This world didn't belong to lions anymore. I would rest here, for now. But soon enough, everything breathing under this sky would know. There was something worse than Scar. Something that didn't need to lie. Chapter 4. The Taste of Authority. The western cliffs were quiet. Too quiet for lions. Too dry, too cracked, too bare of shade, but not too quiet for me. The wind came in low from the ridges, carrying the scent of far-off elephants and brittle, sun-bleached grass. The rocks were hot under my paws. I liked it that way. I didn't settle right away. I walked. Each step mattered. Every ledge I crossed, every narrow passage, every dry stream bed, I catalogued it. This wasn't like the jungle. There were no thick roots or dripping vines. There was no canopy to vanish beneath. The savannah was bare, exposed. The cliffs were the only places that felt familiar, high, quiet, elevated above the noise. Scar had said this place was useless. He lacked imagination. There were caves hidden between the broken stones, small ones not wide enough for lions, but more than enough for me. The wind funneled through them just right. I listened to the sound for a long while, the air brushing over my ears in thin, perfect lines. The bones here were old, antelope, some lion, picked clean by time. The dust stuck to my pads. I made no effort to clean them off. I was about to circle farther west when I caught the sound. Pause. Light, swift, coordinated. I went still, head up. The scent reached me a moment later. Lionesses, moving fast, hunting. I tracked them easily. They weren't subtle. They hadn't learned the silence I knew. They weren't predators alone. They moved like a pack, trusting each other to finish the kill. But they weren't in sync, not fully. Their steps echoed off the cliffs, too sharp, too rushed. I moved down to intercept them. I found them weaving through the stone passes, eyes locked on a thin trail of zebra moving east. 3 lionesses, lean with muscle and hunger. Their tails were low, shoulders coiled. I stepped into their path without a word. They froze. The front lioness, tawny, lean, alert, drew back half a step. Her eyes narrowed. The other 2 halted behind her, not afraid, not yet, just confused. "What are you doing here?" the front one asked. I didn't answer. She raised her chin slightly. "You're not lion. What are you?" Still, I said nothing. "You're in the Pride Lands," she said, voice sharper. "Speak." I took one slow step forward. "You're the ones who have made the mistake. You're in my territory." That made all 3 of them flinch. "The Pride Lands extend this far," she said. "These cliffs belong to the king." I let my claws slide out, just enough to click against the stone. "The king gave this land to me." She snarled. "Mufasa would never allow." "The king," I said, cutting her off, "is not Mufasa." Her eyes widened. She wasn't ready to hear that. None of them were. Behind her, one of the younger lionesses whispered, "What?" "Mufasa," I said clearly, "is dead. Scar rules now." And Scar agreed. "These cliffs are mine." They all stepped back at once, not in fear yet, but in shock, like the words hadn't reached them fully. The front lioness stared at me, expression cracking. "You lie," she said, but it was quiet, weak. "Go ask your king," I said, "or look at the bottom of the gorge. His body is still there." One of the lionesses turned. She was already backing up. The front one, older, harder, held her ground for a moment more. Her breath came tight, controlled. "Who are you?" "That doesn't matter," I said. "What matters is this isn't your land anymore." We stood still, the wind curling through the stone around us. Finally, she stepped back. Her voice was steel. "My name is Sarabi. I was queen under Mufasa." "Not anymore." She didn't answer. She turned sharply and growled once, and the others followed. They left fast, heading back toward Pride Rock without a kill, without a word. I watched them go, tails low, eyes behind them. They would bring word. Good. Let it spread. I turned back to the land. The sun was dipping low now, slicing across the cliffs at an angle. I took the higher path, the one that looped around the ridge and overlooked the shallow canyon below. I found a tall outcrop of stone, not wide but high, bare, scorched by the sun. I climbed it in 3 strides and stood at the top. I opened my mouth, and I marked it. The sound echoed. The scent filled the wind. It clung to the rock, to the dust. It told the world what it needed to know. This was mine. Not Scar's, not the Pride Lands. Mine. I spent the rest of the day walking the borders. Where the cliffs dropped into dry riverbeds, I left claw marks deep in the rock. Where the path narrowed to a choke point, I raked the dust with my steps, rubbed my fur against the walls, made sure every predator, every prey, everything would smell me and remember. This wasn't a hiding place. It was a claim. And the next creature to step inside it, without my leave, would learn what kind of predator had arrived. Chapter 5. A forest in my bones. The cliffs were jagged and raw, not carved by time, but abandoned by it. Nothing here moved without purpose. The wind passed in thin threads between sharp stone and narrow ridges, and it carried nothing. No scent of prey, no green, no decay, just air and rock. But I wanted to understand every inch of it. Beneath the cliffs was a basin. It stretched far too far. I stood at the edge, eyes scanning the valley below. It was dry, bone dry, not cracked like desert, just empty. A long hollow stretch of dead soil and tired rocks, with no tree, no shade, no water save for memory. Even the insects had abandoned it. But it was wide. I kept watching, silent, unmoving. The way a tiger watches. I counted the edges. I measured the space. It was the size of a forest. It could be a forest. Tigers did not thrive on rock. This stone, this heat, this emptiness, it grated. The cliffs were fine for elevation, but they weren't home, not truly. A tiger lives in cover, in stillness and shade. We are made for stalks, not sprints, for silence, not sun. This valley could be changed, not quickly, not easily, but one day, yes, one day it could belong to me in truth. Why fight biology? I was a tiger. I would make this place fit me. I walked down. The incline was steep but manageable. My claws found grip easily. My tail moved in rhythm with the slope. The earth below was warm and coarse beneath my pads. There was nothing here, not a single tree root, no trail of animals, not even bones. No wonder Scar gave it up. He saw a wasteland. He didn't see potential. I walked farther out, past the first cluster of stones, into the vast open basin. The sky seemed lower here, heavier. The sun came down like punishment. I didn't sweat, but my body didn't like it. This was not forest, not yet. I turned to head back. I wouldn't scout the entire valley today. It was too big, too open, and I didn't expect to find anything. The predators didn't come here. The prey never had. Then I heard it. Whines. Not one. A soft chorus, yelps, gasps, short keening sounds carried faintly across the heat. I stopped. I turned. It wasn't far, just a mile. But walking a mile across this valley would take too long under this sun, and I didn't trust what I'd heard to still be there when I arrived. So I ran. The heat rolled over me. The wind cut into my whiskers. I didn't sprint. I didn't need to. I paced myself just under full speed, enough to cover the distance fast, but controlled. My paws kicked up dry dust. My muscles moved without hesitation. My breath stayed quiet, even in motion. 4 minutes. That's how long it took. I crested a rise in the valley floor and saw it. A small indentation in the stone, maybe once a watering hole, now half filled with stagnant water. Not enough to drink, barely enough to reflect the sky. But it wasn't the pond that mattered. It was what surrounded it. 25. 25 African wild dogs, skinny, sunken, bone-sharp. Their fur was patchy in places, some limping, others panting so hard I could hear it. They saw me. And they didn't run. They didn't even try. They looked up, some standing unsteadily, others staying low to the dirt. They stared. They knew what I was. Even if they'd never seen a tiger before, they knew. A predator. Alone. Unchallenged. I stepped forward. No growl, no words. The dust shifted beneath my paws. The dogs tensed, but they didn't move. They watched. I stopped 10 feet from the edge of the pond. The water was too shallow for even the smallest antelope to care about, but the dogs had nothing else. Their scent was thick in the heat. They'd been here a while, waiting to die, or waiting to be forgotten. I looked at them. They looked back. One lifted its head, older, scars across its snout. It didn't speak, but its posture shifted, low but not submissive, a kind of acknowledgement. Wild dogs didn't have kings, they had packs. I wasn't their alpha. I was something else. I stepped once more, claws clicking against a flat rock. The sound alone made two of the younger ones flinch. Still, none ran. I tilted my head slightly, eyes narrow. My voice came low, calm, like Shere Khan's always was. You've taken shelter in my valley. No one answered. I didn't need them to. I don't care where you came from, I continued. I don't care how you got here. I glanced down at the water, then back to them. If you stay, you follow one rule. You eat only what I allow. You move only where I permit. You make no noise loud enough to be heard from the cliffs, and you do not challenge me. Silence. The wind pressed down again. The lead dog held my gaze, then slowly, deliberately lowered its head. I said nothing else. I turned and walked away. Behind me no one followed, not yet. But they didn't run either. They would remember the voice, the way I moved, the scent I left in the dry stone air. They would remember the shape of something that did not need to prove anything. I returned to the ridge and sat at the edge, looking down at the basin, at the pond, at the silent circle of wild dogs and the dust-colored earth. This would not be forest for a long time. But now it wasn't empty anymore. Chapter 6. The Beginning of Order. The sun had dropped behind the cliffs by the time I left them again. Heat still clung to the rocks, low and pulsing, but the light was gold now, less punishment, more warning. I descended quietly, not toward the valley this time, but eastward, where dry grass still clung to shaded ground. The herds had moved early, chasing what little green still remained, but I didn't need many. I only needed one. I walked until I smelled them, thick musk and slow footsteps, the sound of shifting hooves in dusty grass. Water buffalo. A dozen of them, large, heavy, dangerous. Their horns curved like scythes. They moved with weight and certainty, but not caution, not toward a tiger. They didn't know what I was. I waited in the tall grass, silent, breath low and even. I found the slowest one, scarred leg, left side. It moved with effort. The others kept pace with it, but barely. I stepped out of the grass, without a sound. No growl. No rush. No roar. The buffalo didn't even look at me, until I was 5 feet away. Then its head turned. Too late. I launched forward, claws out, body low. I struck under the ribs with full weight behind me. The herd scattered before the scream even began. My teeth locked behind the shoulder. It thrashed. I didn't let go. I dragged it down. It fought hard, but only for seconds. Then it stopped. I didn't clean it. I didn't care for ceremony. I dragged the body back across the ridge and into the basin, muscles working slow and steady beneath my hide. The dogs saw me coming long before I reached them. They were still gathered around the dry pond, quiet and unmoving. No one spoke. I dropped the carcass in the dust. They stared at it. Then at me. I didn't speak. I tore open the flank with my teeth and ate. Slowly, thoroughly. I didn't rush. I didn't need to. No one moved. I ate until I was full, until the tight pressure settled in my belly and the taste of blood faded from sharpness to warmth. Then I stepped back. The dogs waited. I gave them one nod. That was enough. They didn't fight. They didn't charge. They organized. The weak went first, limping pups and tired old ones. They moved without hesitation, but also without fear. The strong stood watch, alert, patient. The pack moved like it remembered who it had once been. I watched. I didn't care who ate what. I only cared that no one crossed the line I'd drawn, and none of them did. The alpha ate last. He was lean but sharp-eyed, older but not weak. His teeth were worn but intact. His ribs pressed slightly beneath his fur, but his step was steady. When he finished, I spoke. "You've eaten," I said. "You didn't waste time. You didn't take more than you needed." He lifted his head, fur still streaked red around his muzzle. He didn't bow. He didn't posture. He just looked at me. "I know order," he said, "even in ruin." I nodded once, then understand this. He waited. "You work for me now." The dogs behind him didn't flinch. They listened. "I'll give you food," I continued, "and a place to stay. You'll hunt when I tell you, patrol when I tell you. If anyone crosses the valley, I want to know before they take a step. If Scar sends scouts, I want to smell them before they see the cliffs." The alpha blinked slowly. "We work for you," he said, "and you give us life." "No," I corrected. "I give you purpose. You want life, earn it." He looked back at the pack. They weren't full, but they were eating. The pups were already curling near the carcass, sleeping. He turned to me again. "We will." "Good," I said. "Feed the rest. Let them rest tonight." I looked toward the darkening edge of the valley. "Tomorrow," I said, "they start." He nodded once, and for the first time, I saw it. Not loyalty, not fear, obedience, the beginnings of a chain. And I was at the top. Chapter 6, The Beginning of Order. The sun had dropped behind the cliffs by the time I left them again. Heat still clung to the rocks, low and pulsing, but the light was gold now, less punishment, more warning. I descended quietly, not toward the valley this time, but eastward, where dry grass still clung to shaded ground. The herds had moved early, chasing what little green still remained, but I didn't need many. I only needed one. I walked until I smelled them, thick musk and slow footsteps, the sound of shifting hooves in dusty grass. Water buffalo. A dozen of them, large, heavy, dangerous. Their horns curved like scythes. They moved with weight and certainty, but not caution, not toward a tiger. They didn't know what I was. I waited in the tall grass, silent, breath low and even. I found the slowest one, scarred leg, left side. It moved with effort. The others kept pace with it, but barely. I stepped out of the grass, without a sound. No growl. No rush. No roar. The buffalo didn't even look at me, until I was 5 feet away. Then its head turned. Too late. I launched forward, claws out, body low. I struck under the ribs with full weight behind me. The herd scattered before the scream even began. My teeth locked behind the shoulder. It thrashed. I didn't let go. I dragged it down. It fought hard, but only for seconds. Then it stopped. I didn't clean it. I didn't care for ceremony. I dragged the body back across the ridge and into the basin, muscles working slow and steady beneath my hide. The dogs saw me coming long before I reached them. They were still gathered around the dry pond, quiet and unmoving. No one spoke. I dropped the carcass in the dust. They stared at it. Then at me. I didn't speak. I tore open the flank with my teeth and ate. Slowly, thoroughly. I didn't rush. I didn't need to. No one moved. I ate until I was full, until the tight pressure settled in my belly and the taste of blood faded from sharpness to warmth. Then I stepped back. The dogs waited. I gave them one nod. That was enough. They didn't fight. They didn't charge. They organized. The weak went first, limping pups and tired old ones. They moved without hesitation, but also without fear. The strong stood watch, alert, patient. The pack moved like it remembered who it had once been. I watched. I didn't care who ate what. I only cared that no one crossed the line I'd drawn, and none of them did. The alpha ate last. He was lean but sharp-eyed, older but not weak. His teeth were worn but intact. His ribs pressed slightly beneath his fur, but his step was steady. When he finished, I spoke. "You've eaten," I said. "You didn't waste time. You didn't take more than you needed." He lifted his head, fur still streaked red around his muzzle. He didn't bow. He didn't posture. He just looked at me. "I know order," he said, "even in ruin." I nodded once, then understand this. He waited. "You work for me now." The dogs behind him didn't flinch. They listened. "I'll give you food," I continued, "and a place to stay. You'll hunt when I tell you, patrol when I tell you. If anyone crosses the valley, I want to know before they take a step. If Scar sends scouts, I want to smell them before they see the cliffs." The Alpha blinked slowly. "We work for you," he said, "and you give us life." "No," I corrected. "I give you purpose. You want life, earn it." He looked back at the pack. They weren't full, but they were eating. The pups were already curling near the carcass, sleeping. He turned to me again. "We will." "Good," I said. "Feed the rest. Let them rest tonight." I looked toward the darkening edge of the valley. "Tomorrow," I said, "they start." He nodded once, and for the first time, I saw it. Not loyalty, not fear, obedience, the beginnings of a chain. And I was at the top. Chapter 8, The Work of Creation. The valley no longer looked dead. It wasn't green, not yet. No trees, no flowers, no vines. But the ground had changed. It had softened. A week of buffalo runs had pressed wetness into the dirt, and now the floor held it. Pools dotted the basin like wounds that refused to close, shallow and scattered, but real. When the wind passed, it didn't lift dry dust anymore. It carried the smell of damp earth and living breath. The shade helped. The cliffs above bent the light across the basin, casting long shadows that cooled the dirt in strips. In the jungle, shade was endless. Here it was precious. I'd learned to follow it, to move beneath it like cover. The puddles survived longer because of it. The land was learning how to hold life again. And now it was time to shape it. I stood on the high ridge, the morning wind pressing down over my back. Below me, the wild dogs gathered, all 25, including the youngest. The pups limped alongside older dogs. No one complained. The Alpha sat at the front, eyes sharp. He didn't ask questions, not yet. "Bring them all," I said to him. "Everyone." He nodded and barked once. The pack shifted, realigning, forming a loose half-circle in the damp clearing. I stepped down from the ridge and walked toward the center of the basin. When I reached it, I paused. Then I dropped low. I began to dig. Not fast, not with force, with intent. My claws sliced through the softened mud and lifted it gently. I pushed the sludge aside, then gathered it again and piled it on the rim of the hole, packing it tightly with my paws. I looked up at the pack. "This," I said. "We raise the sides, shape the ground. Every paw that digs moves the basin closer to something useful." The Alpha stepped forward and mimicked my motion. His paws weren't built for this, but he learned fast. He dug small scoops, pushed the mud where I pushed it. Behind him, the rest of the pack began to follow, clumsy, uncoordinated, but eager. The pups squealed as they slapped the mud around, more play than precision, but even that helped. Soon the floor was alive with movement. Everywhere I looked, paws were digging, mud was turning, and piles were forming. Trenches began to take shape where none had been. The rim around the puddles thickened. Water stopped leaking outward. It was being held now. The pack worked for hours. When the sun climbed higher, I called the Alpha aside. He came quickly, paws thick with wet dirt, tongue low, body slick from work. "We're not done," I said. "I'll keep them digging," he said. "They're learning." "Not all of them," I said. "Take half. Leave the weak ones and the pups. They'll shape the ground." He nodded, then hesitated. "And the rest?" I stared at him. "We need birds." He blinked. Birds, Shere Khan. Yes. His ears twitched. Why? I'll explain later. He didn't question again. He turned and barked, short, precise. Half the adults split off. They gathered around me, already tense with energy from digging, still hungry to be used. Follow me, I said. They did. We walked east, past the limits of the work zone, across the ridge, and toward the tall grass near the higher pools. Birds gathered there in the early morning, small ones, nothing impressive. But what they were didn't matter. What they did mattered. And soon the pack would understand that too. This was no longer survival. This was engineering. And everything alive in the Pride Lands would learn. I was building something that didn't belong to lions. It belonged to me. Chapter 9, Wings for the Soil. The ground had changed. It didn't look like jungle, not yet, but it no longer looked like death. Where once there had been only cracked earth and sun-bleached dust, now there was movement, moisture, purpose. The wild dogs were no longer just survivors. They were useful. I'd made them part of the valley, and the valley had begun to respond. When I walked through it, I no longer heard silence. I heard paws shifting mud, low whines of effort, puppies chasing each other through puddles and trenches, their bodies caked in clay. The elders dug slower with stiff shoulders and labored breath, but they kept going. No one disobeyed. The alpha's commands echoed my own. We didn't rule with fear. We ruled with direction. And the basin was starting to listen. Shallow trenches held water longer. The softened ground was darkening, starting to smell of life. I walked along the rim, testing the soil under each step. It held. It gave slightly but didn't collapse. That was good. That meant it could support weight. It could grow. Still not enough. The mud would soon harden again and the dogs would tire. Water alone wasn't life. I needed something living to take root, and not trees, not yet. That was later. First, I needed the smallest forms, the base, the cedars. So I told the alpha, birds. He hadn't understood at first, but he obeyed. And now we were in the tall grass, just east of the northern ponds, just as the sun began to stretch its reach down across the low savanna. Birds were everywhere. Small white ones stood ankle-deep in water, picking insects from reeds. Others circled above, landing briefly before flapping off again. In the mud nearby, I saw the trails they left, feather scratches, claw marks, waste. All of it was useful. All of it would carry something. The alpha crouched beside me in the tall grass, his breath shallow. We don't eat them, I said. He flicked his ear. We catch them. We herd them. He looked at me, confused again. Why birds, Shere Khan? Because they bring what we cannot, I said. Bugs, droppings, seeds. They carry the jungle without knowing it. They're weak. Yes, I said, but they feed the strong. They bring flies. Flies feed frogs. Frogs feed cats, and so on. A chain starts with something small. He nodded, slowly. You want them in the basin. I want them everywhere in the basin, I said. Drinking, nesting, eating. I want the valley to stink with their presence. They'll fly away. Not if they like what they find. He looked back at the dogs behind us. What do we do? Surround, I said. No barking, just pressure. Scare them into flight, then guide the flight. Toward the valley. Yes. They'll see it. And they'll land. He said nothing else. I turned and moved into the grass, low and controlled. The dogs behind me fanned out, forming a loose circle around the edge of the pond. They moved well now, not with grace, but with discipline. Enough to hunt, enough to guide. I gave a low growl, short, flat. The circle closed. The birds noticed too late. They squawked and flapped, lifting off the water in frantic bursts. Dozens of them. The pond exploded with motion. Feathers filled the air, wings beat furiously. Then the dogs began to move. Not fast, not wild. Directed. They pushed from the left, curved on the right. I moved in a straight line, head low, pacing under the rise of the nearest hill. The birds moved with panic, but without direction. That was the difference. We gave them direction. They flew low over the ridge, drawn forward by instinct, by fear, by pressure. When they saw the basin, damp, dark, shadowed, they dipped. They landed. One by one, clusters of them touched down across the mud. They stepped, sniffed, dipped their beaks in puddles. Some flapped once and settled again. The dogs stopped at the edge. They didn't cross. The alpha joined me at the crest. He watched the valley, his tongue lolling. They stay, he asked. For now, I said. And later. We build shallow walls, I said. Stone, bone, whatever the dogs can carry. We make perches, we make places to drink. They'll nest, they'll return. He looked at me carefully. You want them to live here. I want life to live here, I said. Birds are first. He sat, mud caked his forelegs. You could have killed them. Yes. You didn't. No. He nodded. Then neither will we. I looked out over the basin. The dogs had returned to work, half digging, half watching the birds with silent curiosity. The pups barked excitedly when one flew too close. A few of the birds had already begun pecking at insects drawn by the water. The valley was moving, slowly, but it was moving. It had taken a week to soften the floor. Now the air itself had changed. It didn't smell like dead heat anymore. It smelled like mud, like bird feathers, like breath. It was beginning. And I was building it with tooth and claw, not prophecy. Not magic. Just work. Chapter 10. Let them build trees. The birds stayed. By midday, their shadows crossed the basin in soft flickers, dozens of white wings casting shifting shapes across the wet ground. The pups barked at them but never chased. The adult dogs watched with half-curious, half-instinctive restraint. Some even lay beside the puddles, their ears twitching with each flap. The valley was not silent anymore. It sang. It was time to make it last. I stood at the edge of the largest trench, 2 body lengths across and ringed with uneven mounds of packed dirt. The wild dogs were gathered again, tired but alert. Their paws were caked with mud, and their flanks were streaked with sweat. The alpha approached. They're staying, he said. They will, I replied, but not for long, not unless we give them reason. He tilted his head, eyes narrowing. You want more. I want permanence. He didn't answer, but he didn't look away. I lifted one paw and pointed it toward the flocks circling above. They will drink here, they will feed here, but more importantly, I let the paws settle. They will shit here. The alpha blinked, the younger dogs stirred. I continued. They eat seeds, bugs, rotten meat. They fly far across trees and flowers and weeds, and when they defecate, they drop all of that into our soil, into this soil. He slowly sat. You mean they will plant things? They won't mean to, but it will happen. Roots will follow, first weeds, then vines, then maybe trees. The alpha looked out across the puddles and trenches, toward the birds hopping from stone to stone. Trees, he said, as if testing the word. Yes. This place was dead, he said. It was, I agreed. And you want trees here. I want cover, I said. Shade, depth, something a tiger can walk through without seeing the sky. He looked at the sky above us, empty and open. I like the sky, he said. I don't, I replied. He bared his teeth in what might have been a grin. What do we do? We give the birds reason to stay, I said. We give them places to land, to roost, to nest. Nest. Yes, I said. Small platforms from stone, from bones, from whatever you can carry. Stack them near water, under cliff shade, wherever they'll feel safe. They'll build homes, he said, beginning to see it. And they'll treat the valley like home. He turned to the dogs and barked sharply. The pack shifted into motion almost immediately. They broke into loose groups, the older ones heading toward the cliffs to fetch stones, the younger ones gathering discarded ribs and shoulder bones from the kill site outside the basin. One pup dragged an entire antelope skull half his size, tripping over his own feet with effort. I said nothing. The alpha watched his pack work for a moment, then turned back to me. "This will take time," he said. "Yes. They're not builders. They are now." He looked me in the eye. "What do we call this?" "This place." He nodded. I thought for a moment. Then I looked out over the basin, watching as a group of birds landed on a new stretch of mud just dug this morning. They pecked lazily at the waterline, then settled into stillness. Comfortable, safe. "For now," I said, "we don't name it." The alpha frowned. "We let it earn a name." He didn't speak again. I turned away from the birds, away from the pack, and began walking up toward the cliffs. My body was heavy, not from exhaustion, but from effort. My muscles ached in the right way, the way they used to in the jungle after a long hunt, after something was mine. The sun had lowered again, casting long golden lines across the stone ledges. My path curved slowly around a sharp ridge, then rose to the narrow overlook I'd claimed as my own. From there I could see everything, the dig sites, the water, the soft, shifting mass of the pack working far below. And now birds. White wings cutting across the evening air. Droppings already staining the stones. Proof of life. I circled once, curled into the hard shade, and lay down. The basin would not be quiet tonight. There would be flapping, digging, barking, but that didn't bother me. They were building. And when I woke, they'd still be working. Chapter 11. No place for scavengers. The outlands reeked of ash. The soil was dry, but it wasn't like the valley. It wasn't old dryness or proud. It was the stink of rot and smoke, the kind that clung to fur and stayed even when you left. The air here was stale, brittle underfoot, as though the land itself had been cracked open and left to die without burial. I walked at the front of the formation. The alpha followed close behind me, flanked by 6 dogs, older, leaner, experienced. We made no sound. There was nothing to talk about. The mission was simple. We needed bones. The wind shifted as we crested the jagged ridge that marked the edge of the outlands. Below, it opened into a shallow basin, grey rocks, scrub grass, and scattered everywhere the twisted white remains of kills, horns, ribs, cracked femurs, gnawed spines. The alpha slowed beside me. "There are no hyenas," he said. His voice wasn't nervous, just alert, suspicious. "They're not here anymore," I said. "Why?" "Scar lets them into the Pride Lands." He stiffened, growling low in his throat. "That's forbidden." "Not anymore," I said. "Scar doesn't care for rules. He cares for obedience. He thinks the hyenas will protect his rule." "And they won't. They'll take what they want," I said. "Then they'll leave him hollow." The alpha turned to the bones. "We take what's useful." "Only what we need," I said, quickly. The dogs spread out in practiced lines, weaving between skulls and sun-bleached limbs. They didn't waste time. They knew the signs: clean cuts, dry marrow, the difference between old kills and infected ones. We took ribs, spines, thick bones that could brace weight. No skulls, no pelts, just structure. One of the younger dogs dragged a set of gazelle ribs bound together with hardened sinew. Another rolled a curved piece of horn toward the edge of the ridge, letting it drop with a dull thump. I didn't speak again until we returned to the valley. The birds were still there. Good. The pack returned to work without command. The dogs began arranging the bones around the puddles, shaping crude perches, loose circles where nests could form, scattered lines of raised bone where birds could rest, groom, and mark with droppings. The alpha stood beside me as I watched. "We build them homes now," he asked. No, I said. We show them possibility. They'll finish it themselves. He nodded, and we dig again. Yes, I said. You dig, that's your work. He turned immediately and barked sharp orders. The digging pack reassembled. The younger ones took to the task first, still full of energy. The older ones followed at a steadier rhythm. No one complained. They dug like it was survival, because it was. The alpha followed his pack. I left them behind. I hadn't eaten since morning. I moved past the cliffs toward the eastern grassland where the buffalo still lingered. The herd had grown wary. They remembered the last one I dragged into the valley. They kept their distance, but they were slow. And no lion hunted this far east anymore, not since Scar stopped caring. I waited. I crouched. I picked the one I wanted, thick-necked, fat, broad-shouldered, not weak, but not fast. I lunged. It saw me too late. The kill was clean, not fast, but clean. I tore it open on the hill and ate where it fell. I didn't drag it. I didn't hide it. The wind carried the scent wide. Let them know. Let the whole Pride Lands smell the blood and understand. There was a real predator here now. One that didn't rule by birthright. One that didn't trade promises for safety. One that simply took and gave nothing back that wasn't earned. Chapter 12. Reign upon my kingdom. It had taken a month, not long in the scale of land, but long enough for life to answer the call. The valley no longer looked like dust. It had begun to wear a coat of green, not thick, not lush, not yet, but present, real. Small blades of grass were now scattered across the floor in irregular patches. Thorny bushes had taken root near the edges, and there were even the beginnings of soft brush at the base of the shaded cliffs. Tiny trees, no taller than my shoulder, grew in crooked, uncertain lines where the birds gathered most. Their droppings had done the work, fertilizer, seed, and pest in one. Insects had come with them, frogs followed. I had found a pair of lizards near the western ridge the night before, basking on a bone. That hadn't happened before. This place was no longer dead. It was growing. I stood at the ridge as I always did, just before the sun crested behind me. I could smell the dogs before I heard them, damp paws, dust, fur, and wet earth. The alpha approached without barking. His pace was slow, precise, disciplined. Behind him came 20 dogs, no pups, no elders, just the lean and fast. He stopped beside me and sat without needing instruction. "They're ready," he said. I didn't look at him. My eyes stayed on the basin. "Today we heard prey," I said. "Small ones, nothing heavy, nothing that will ruin the ground." He nodded. "Gazelles, springhares, maybe antelope if they're young." "Yes," I said. "No buffalo, no zebras, not yet. The trees can't take the weight." He didn't argue. He gave one short bark and turned. The dogs moved at once. 2 stayed near him to receive specific paths, north and east, around the shallow slopes where the gazelles wandered at dawn. They wouldn't kill unless the herd broke. Their job wasn't to hunt today. It was to guide. As they left, I stayed behind. I watched from above, but only for a moment. Then I turned and descended into the valley. It was cooler in the morning now. That was new. The cliffs cast long shadows that stretched far across the basin, and where those shadows touched, the air held onto its moisture just a little longer. My paws touched soft mud instead of cracked dust. The earth gave slightly under my weight, still shallow, still reluctant, but less brittle than before. Near the center, grass grew in uneven tufts. I stopped at one and bent low, sniffing. It was fresh. It wasn't jungle grass, thin, fragile, too brittle to hide in, but it was still green. I ran my paw across it. It bent without snapping. I pressed it into the earth and watched it spring back. I exhaled quietly. Good. Further on, I passed a puddle that had turned into a proper pond. It wasn't large, maybe the length of my body across, but it was clean. The birds had gathered around it in 3s and 4s. One pecked at the mud, another bathed, flapping its wings and sending soft ripples across the surface. I sat beside it and waited. The sun climbed higher. I could feel it warming my back. And then, without warning, a drop hit my nose. I blinked once, looking up. Another drop struck my forehead. Then 2 more, then 5, then 1,000. It didn't start slow. The sky didn't darken with drama. The clouds had been waiting, and now they gave in all at once. Rain. Not a storm. A pour. Cool, clean, immediate. It hit the cliffs in soft sheets and raced down in thin trails, soaking into the mud with soft, wet sounds. The birds rose in a flurry, circling low above the basin, wings wet but excited. The frogs croaked from somewhere unseen. A fly buzzed past my face and vanished toward the ridgeline. I did not move. I let it fall across my back, through my fur, down the curve of my spine. I felt the mud darken under my paws. I saw the grass lean under the weight. I watched the pond swell just slightly. I had seen many rains in the jungle, heavy ones, wild ones, but those rains belonged to someone else's world, someone else's land. This one, this was mine. I closed my eyes and let it soak in. I don't know how long I stayed there. Eventually, I heard paws. Not a sprint, just movement. Wet paws against wet soil. I turned my head. The alpha stood 10 paces away, soaked to the bone, fur dark and slick. His chest rose and fell quickly, but he didn't seem tired. His eyes were wide. "They're coming," he said. "The herds." I rose slowly. Water rolled off my flanks in sheets. "How many?" I asked. 3 clusters, he said. 12 gazelles, a few spring hares. The dogs are circling. They'll enter from the east ridge in minutes. Any kills? One, a limping one, wouldn't move. They left the body at the ridge. Good, I said. The ground's still soft. I don't want too many bones near the center. He tilted his head slightly. You care about bones now. I care about roots, I said, and hooves crush them. He said nothing, but his face showed something like understanding. We walked together, slow through the rain, until we reached a rise near the basin's mouth. From there I saw them, the gazelles, light-bodied, anxious. Their hooves clicked softly as they stepped into the valley for the first time. They looked around at the grass, the puddles, the smell of birds, dogs, predator growth. They didn't bolt. One dipped its head and sniffed the mud. Then another began to drink. The rest followed. The pack stayed near the edges, circling lightly, preventing escape without intimidation. They didn't bite. They didn't bark. They let the gazelles wander. The spring hares bounced near the lower ridge. They found the insects, and the birds circled tighter. The chain was closing. The alpha stood beside me, his head low but alert. This valley, he said, it's becoming something. It always was, I said. It just needed to be reminded. He was quiet for a long time. Then he asked, what now? I looked across the green. It was still young, still fragile. But it was working. Now we stop pushing, I said. We let it grow, let it settle, keep it moving, but only where it needs to. And us. You dig, you patrol, you keep the birds fed. You let the prey come and leave without fear. You let them trust the basin. And you. I turned away from him and began walking toward the cliffs. I watch. I didn't look back. I walked the long path up to my ledge, rain dripping from every part of my body. When I reached the top, I sat again in the shade. The clouds still wept, but gently now, like they'd given what they had and were only finishing the story. I looked down on my valley. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't dead. And that made it mine. Chapter 13. Walls for the Future. The valley was no longer a secret. It breathed. It held water. It held grass. It held life. Prey moved through it now, careful, slow, but present. Gazelles stepped through the lowland grass, drinking from the ponds shaped by mud and claw. Birds circled overhead, some settling into nests crafted from bone and leaf, others drifting off to carry seed and waste to the world beyond. It was not perfect, it was not a jungle, but it was mine. And now I would protect it. No predators had come yet, no lions, no hyenas. Scar was too focused on his throne, too eager to silence dissent and flatter the hyenas at his heel. He believed the western cliffs were useless, and the valley beneath them a graveyard for old stone. Let him believe it. But one day he would look west. And when he did, he would find a fortress, not a ruin. That morning I rose early. I didn't eat. I didn't speak. I walked to the top of the ridge and looked down into the basin below. The rain had passed days ago, but the earth still held the scent of it. The grass was thicker now, knee-high in some places. The trees were still young, but their roots had found the water. The alpha stood at the pond's edge, watching a group of spring hares eat quietly beneath a bush. He said nothing when he saw me. We didn't need to speak every day anymore. He understood the work now. That mattered. I turned from the ridge and began. The idea was simple. Make the valley sealed. Not with force, not with fear, but with certainty. No prey would leave unless I wanted it to. No predator would enter without earning it, and nothing would mistake this place for unclaimed land again. I walked the outer edge of the ridge, 20 meters in both directions from my perch, and began to reshape it. The soil was dry up here, but the rain had softened it just enough to work with. I dug, pulled, collapsed ledges inward. I pushed stones from above, letting them slide into shallow trenches, then packed the soil tight around them with my paws and chest. I worked for hours, pressing the natural slope into something else, a barrier. Each day, I returned to it. No help. No dogs. No instructions. This wasn't their work. This was mine. By the 5th day, the edge of the ridge no longer sloped outward. It rose, like a wall, like the lip of a stone bowl. Even the birds shifted their flights to clear the sharp, narrow bend now created. I didn't shape it to be impassable, just uninviting. No gazelle would leap it. No warthog would scramble over it. And certainly no lion would patrol past it without feeling the choke of space. One way in. One way out. Where I slept. The entrance was narrow, barely wide enough for two prey animals to walk side by side. The rest had been closed, not with dead stone, but with shaped ground, curved ridges, natural curves that redirected movement. By the end of the 2nd week, the valley was closed. And still, life moved. The alpha met me on the 13th morning. His fur was stiff with clay. He'd been helping the pups dig irrigation trenches near the far side of the basin. His paws were stained. His breath was even. There are more now, he said. I turned my head slightly. Gazelles, birds, hares, even a tortoise. Good, I said. I told the pack to let the brush grow. You understand why. He nodded. If we take the green too early, it dies. If we wait, it returns more. I studied him carefully, and what follows? More prey. I watched him. He didn't blink. And what follows them? I asked. Predators, he said, then added, not us. No, I said, not you. He lowered his head slightly. You're building it, he said, slowly, but it's real now. It's not enough. Why? I looked back at the basin, at the tall grass near the inner pond, at the birds nesting, at the small clusters of prey that moved through the shade like the land was already theirs. Scar will poison the pride lands, I said. His hunger will drain the herds. His hyenas will not wait for grass to regrow. He'll come here. Not at first, but the animals will. When the rest dies, they'll look for water, for shelter. They'll find this. And then him. Yes. He shifted his weight. How long? A year, I said. Maybe more. Scar's decay is slow but constant. The alpha sat beside me in silence. We watched a lone gazelle walk between two growing bushes, stopping to graze, then moving toward the pond without fear. I need every animal I want in this valley before the pride lands rot, I said. You want to bring them in now. Not all, not at once, but the cycle must begin. He nodded. The pack will herd more next week. No, I said. This time bring variety, small predators, insects, whatever you can find. Make sure they don't feed too fast. Let them adjust. He flicked an ear. I understand. I turned back toward my ledge and began walking. Behind me, the dogs returned to their work. The pups chased insects between the bones of old nests. The birds circled low over the water, then dove to drink. The grass swayed without fear. The wolves were high now. The cycle was moving, and the valley no longer waited for permission to live. It grew. Chapter 14. Eyes toward the rock. The ground was holding moisture. The trenches dug by the dogs over the past 2 weeks had begun to fill properly after each night's condensation. The soil was not hard anymore. It gave way beneath each step. I felt the change in the way my paws pressed against it. The stone was still beneath, but the top layer was wet and flexible. It would take root. It already had. Grass had taken hold in clusters near the pond. The birds remained. Their droppings were scattered across the stone perches and clay basins we built for them. The result was visible. Thin trees had begun to grow in the deeper, shaded parts of the basin. 2 of them had leaves. They were not tall yet. They would not provide proper cover for another season. But they were growing, and they were not dying. I walked the ridge that morning. The wall I had constructed was now complete. For 20 meters on each side of my sleeping perch, the cliff edge was elevated, angled inward. Nothing could jump over it. No prey animal would attempt to escape. There was only one entrance now, the narrow path just below my ledge. All others were sealed. The basin below was not a jungle, but it was no longer a dry valley. The progress was clear. The ecosystem had begun to regulate itself. The alpha understood it. He kept the dogs in balance. They did not overhunt. They dug in rotation. They left the grass untouched. He watched the plants carefully and adjusted the flow of prey accordingly. Still, I needed to know how much time remained. Scar had not reached westward. He had not sent hyenas. He had not sent lions. That did not mean he was unaware. It meant he was waiting, or that he believed there was nothing of value here. Either would be temporary. If the basin continued to grow, his attention would eventually turn toward it. I stood at the cliff and called for the alpha. He came quickly. He stood at the edge and looked down at the basin before looking at me. His legs were caked with dried mud. His fur had thinned from constant movement. He did not rest unless told to. You will go to Pride Rock, I said. He nodded once. You will walk the perimeter. You will not enter the ledge. You will not allow yourself to be seen. If you are seen, you will leave. You will not run. You will not speak. Yes, he said. You will observe the movement of lions. You will count them. You will observe the hyenas. You will track their scent lines and note where their territory reaches. You will follow no packs. Yes. You will track the herds, count the grazing groups, observe the height and health of the grass, report on the rivers, observe the sky, watch the weather, smell for rot or famine, listen for travel, watch for changes. I will. You will return before the 3rd dawn. I understand. Do not eat near the pride lands. Do not sleep near the herds. Keep your scent controlled. If you must drink, find standing water east of the ridge. I will. He left. He did not speak again. I remained on the cliff, watching the basin. Below, the frogs had begun to gather near the pond. Their calls had increased in the evenings. I observed 4 new ones this week. 2 were larger. The birds had begun to eat them. That was acceptable. The food chain required correction. The spring hares had not left. They nested under one of the trees. The pups no longer chased them. 2 days passed. I did not hunt. I did not move far from the ridge. I watched. I walked the full circle of the inner basin twice each day. I stopped at every trench and every tree. I smelled each one. I looked for infection. I looked for animals that should not be there. There were no signs of lions. There were no signs of hyenas. The birds nested, the prey drank, the dogs worked. The air was stable. The alpha returned before sunrise on the 3rd day. He approached silently and sat without speaking. "Report," I said. "Scar is still king," he said. "How many lionesses hunt?" 3 hunting groups. One has 4 members. One has 3. One has 2. All hunt near the central plains. No one hunts near the western ridge. Do they return with meat? Yes, all groups brought back prey. None returned empty. Scar. He did not hunt. He walked the top of Pride Rock each morning. He did not interact with the lionesses. He did not address the hyenas. How many hyenas? 10 remained at the base. They rested near the lower ledge. They did not leave. One scouted north. It returned before sunset. No group movements, no border tests. Any kills near the rock? Yes, 2 kills in 3 days. 1 antelope, 1 buffalo. The buffalo was shared. The antelope was taken by the lionesses. Any signs of sickness? No, no coughing, no limping, no blood in the water. Any signs of overgrazing? No, the grass is green, the soil is even, the herds are wide, the river runs strong. Which herds? Antelope, gazelle, buffalo. I saw one group of wildebeest to the south. They are not moving. They remain in place. Any signs of movement west? No, all prey remain in the central plains. No animals are fleeing. Hyenas. No signs of new territory. They have not expanded. The scent ends at the edge of the rock. Lions. No sign of new cubs. No new males. Conclusion. The Pride lands are stable. I said nothing for a moment. The alpha waited. Scar's decay has not begun, I said. No, he said. I stood and walked to the edge of the ridge. Below, I saw a young bush with wide leaves. A small lizard crawled underneath it. A cluster of gazelles drank from the edge of the pond. One of the birds had caught a frog. The sound of wings passed over my ears. The basin was holding. He will begin to fail in time, I said. The alpha did not answer. He has no balance. He has no law. He gives to the hyenas and expects loyalty. He does not protect the cycle. It will break. How long? The alpha asked. 1 year, maybe more. He nodded. This land must be ready before that, I said. It is strong, he said. It is not finished, I said. What do we do now? I looked at him directly. We expand, we strengthen, we bring more life before the herds begin to run. He said nothing. I continued. We cannot wait for the rot. If the Pride lands fall and we are not ready, they will overrun the basin. They will destroy the balance we built. We bring what we want now, before they are forced to come. He sat still. We need more prey, I said. But not only prey, we need more insects, more birds, more small predators. The system must grow before the land breaks. Every creature we want must be here before Scar's control begins to slip. He looked down at the basin. The frogs were still singing. I will start in the southern ridge, he said. There are animals that do not know this valley yet. Choose small ones, I said. Ones that do not hunt too early, ones that do not destroy the plants. Yes. Bring them slowly, let them adjust, let them stay. He nodded and stood. Return in 2 days, I said. He turned and left the same way he came. I remained on the cliff for another hour. The basin was quiet. It was strong, but it would not survive on its own. It was time to prepare for the collapse. Chapter 15. 1 Year of Order. The ground was soft beneath my paws. It held warmth, not from the sun above, but from what had grown into it. Roots reached deep beneath the surface now. The grass was thick. Each step I took left no mark behind. The floor had memory. The valley remembered what we made it. It had been 1 year. One full cycle since the first trench, since the first rain, since I pulled the water buffalo into the basin and let the dogs feed behind me. Now the trees were tall. The tallest among them, near the central trench, had a straight trunk and 10 healthy branches. Its leaves shaded the old watering hollow where frogs had once croaked in muddy puddles. That water was no longer a puddle. It had become a pond. It remained filled even during dry weeks. The shade kept it from vanishing. Birds nested on its edges. Insects circled above it constantly. 2 young warthogs stepped near its edge. They sniffed the mud. I watched them from the ledge. They belonged here now. I descended from the cliff. The vines that grew across the slope had wrapped around the stones we placed there seasons ago. The walls at the basin's edge had hardened into real barriers, shaped not only by my claws but by time. No prey animal crossed them. There was no confusion now. The animals knew what this place was. This was not wilderness. This was something else. I walked the perimeter of the high basin wall. The sun filtered through the tree canopy above. We had 27 full trees now. 5 were tall enough to shade an entire buffalo. 1 had fallen during a storm 2 months ago. The roots did not rot. We cut it down completely and used the trunk to help shape a new perch near the northern trench. The birds liked it. They did not leave it. The droppings continued. It worked. The cycle worked. As I walked through the center of the basin, prey parted quietly around me, not in fear, in recognition. They moved aside because I walked, not because I hunted. Spring hares ran between shrubs. Gazelles moved slowly to the water, glancing once, then drinking. A line of zebra stood at the far ridge. They had remained in the valley since the start of the dry season. Their hooves had not damaged the grass. The dogs had guided them correctly. There were water buffalo here now, 5 of them. 2 were young, 1 female was pregnant. They remained near the southern brush where the dogs kept patrol. No lions lived here. No hyenas had entered. I walked to the cave. The entrance was wide and deep. The dogs had dug it out during the second season. The interior was cool, dry, packed with bones from older prey, all cleaned, none scattered. The floor was flat. The alpha stood inside, near the back, surrounded by a group of dogs. 10 of them, older, marked. 2 bore scars across their shoulders. All stood still when I entered. The alpha stepped forward. I stopped near the entrance. "Anything new?" I asked. He sat immediately. "No," he said. "The basin is stable. You've brought in everything I asked for." "Yes," he said. The last 2 zebra herds were guided properly. 1 remained near the southern ridge. The other is staying closer to the center. "Water buffalo." 5, he said. 2 males, 2 females, 1 calf. I said nothing. "Gazelles are stable," he continued. "Spring hare population is higher than expected. Warthogs are steady. No conflict between species. No panics." I gave a short nod. "How many birds now?" "More than 100 nests," he said. "More than 300 individuals." I stepped forward once, slow. "The pack?" I asked. 73, he said. I looked at him directly. He stood still under my gaze. "We started with 25, I said. "Yes. 73 is acceptable." "We have the space," he said. "They work in shifts. The hunting groups are rotated. The trench teams have not rested." "Breed more." "We already began." "How many more?" "This year, we can raise 200. "That will be enough," I said. The dogs behind him did not move. "No other predators?" I asked. "No," he said. "1 fox entered last moon. It was driven out." Who drove it out? Two younger males. They did not kill it. They followed instructions. Good. We have not seen lions. If a lion enters, I said, you will not drive it out. The alpha's ears twitched. We will alert you. Yes. You will deal with it. Yes. He did not question me. I looked at the walls. The clay around the cave mouth had hardened. Dog prints were etched into the floor. The smell was dense with territory. Continue rotation, I said. No rest until the rains come again. The roots need more depth. Yes. The stone ridge near the third trench still leaks, I said. Fix it. I've assigned 2. Double the number. Yes. I stepped back toward the mouth of the cave. You will guard the perimeter at dusk, I said. We have 3 groups now, he said. Each takes a corner. Do not miss shifts. No one sleeps before patrols are complete. I turned away. The dogs parted as I exited. None of them spoke. I did not hear footsteps behind me. I walked back toward the ridge. Along the way, a group of dogs passed carrying wet soil on their backs. They dropped it into the edge of the northern trench and began packing it around a small sapling. The sapling had been marked weeks ago. It had not died. Its leaves were wider now. I passed them without speaking. They did not need instruction. At the top of the slope, I stepped onto the ledge. The wind was quiet. The trees rustled beneath me. The birds circled slowly over the canopy. One flew close to my perch and dropped waist onto the clay floor. I let it fall. I did not look down. I lay down. From here, I could see the entire basin. It no longer looked like something forgotten. It looked maintained, controlled, alive by decision. The gazelles drank from the pond. The trees shaded the zebra. The frogs croaked. The birds sang. The wind moved across the leaves, and not the dust. There were no lions. There were no hyenas. No animal died here, unless I wanted it to. I closed my eyes. Scar still ruled Pride Rock. But I ruled something better. Chapter 16. The Division of Territory. The valley had grown beyond expectation. I saw it every day. I walked its edges. I watched the prey herd without fear. I smelled the soil after night rain. I knew it was stable. I knew it would hold. But stability was not enough. It needed structure. The animals had grown in number. The prey did not clash. The frogs and birds balanced each other. The dogs maintained control. No predator challenged us. No animal left. They all stayed. That meant the basin was doing what I intended. But it was time to shape it fully. There was no reason to let the land develop without direction. The pieces were in place. I would assign them to their functions. That morning I left the cliff early. The sun had not reached the highest trees yet. The birds were calling. The grass was wet with dew. I walked to the narrow entry path and followed it down into the basin. The dogs were already up. I passed 5 of them by the northern trench. They were marking the perimeter with packed clay, checking for signs of water loss. They paused when they saw me. None of them spoke. I continued past them and walked into the first section, the area closest to the cliff entrance. This was the area we had worked from the beginning. The walls here were stronger. The clay was packed and hard. The ground was raised. The grass was short, clipped regularly by the dog's movement. This section held no prey. Only perches, dry caves, working trenches, and nests made of bone and stone. The dogs moved freely through it. No other animals entered it. This was our area. The dogs would stay here. I would sleep here. No prey would cross into this place. I marked the ground with fresh scent as I passed. I rubbed my side against the cave wall and clawed a long groove into the trench stone nearest the boundary. No one else would use this ground. It would belong to the pack. It would belong to me. From there, I moved into the next area. It was lower, tucked under the cliff face. This was where the original pond had been shaped. The water had stayed. The shade had thickened. The birds had nested here. There were now more than 30 nests in this section alone. The frogs bred here. The insects were thick in the air. The water never fully dried. The roots ran deep. I could feel them when I walked. This was the shaded zone. It would serve the smaller animals, those who needed cover, those who hunted bugs, those who nested low. It would be the valley's heart. The water here would remain, even during dry seasons. I would not allow heavy animals here. No zebra, no buffalo, nothing with weight. Only birds, frogs, tortoises, and insects. I marked the nearby stone and passed through slowly, checking the trees. Their leaves were healthy, their branches were strong. I scratched bark from one trunk and examined the sap. It ran clean, no rot, no decay. This zone would remain protected. From there, I moved into the next section. This area had grown near the secondary trench network. It had more trees than before, but they were spread apart. There was still water, though not as deep. The grass was longer. The birds nested here too, but not in clusters. The prey had begun to favor this place. I saw 4 gazelles moving through the brush. They paused when they saw me, then moved away slowly. This would be the grazing zone. It would hold the antelope, gazelles, spring hares, and young zebra. The plants were healthy here, and the soil could support hooves. This zone would be rotated. The pack would monitor which animals grazed when. If a section began to weaken, we would pull the herds back. The water here was clean but not deep. It would not survive constant use. I walked the perimeter of this zone and inspected the new growth. It was thick, green, and full of insects. A good sign. I moved beyond the grazing area next. This section was further than I usually traveled. It was at the edge of the dogs' patrol zone. I walked across a narrow ridge and passed into the unknown. I expected dry land. What I found was scale. The valley did not end where we worked. It continued. I walked for over an hour without seeing the end. Grass stretched wide, flat, dry, soft. No trees. The sky opened here. Wind moved without obstruction. There were small hills. There were stones shaped by time. I saw no prey, no birds, no frogs. Nothing we brought here had crossed this far. We had used less than 10% of the valley. I tested the earth. It was dry but not dead. The grass was healthy. It could support movement. It could support animals. The soil would hold trenches if we dug them. This area would become something later. For now, I would assign it to the larger prey. Not now, not this season. But when we had more buffalo, more zebra, more wildebeest, this is where they would go. This would be the open range. This section would not be used until we were ready to support it. For now, it would remain untouched. I turned back. I returned to the cliff by late afternoon. The dogs were returning from the central trench. 2 of them carried stones. The others were cleaning a broken perch near the water. The alpha stood near the lower ledge, watching a group of spring hares drink. He turned when he saw me. I did not speak until I reached him. The valley is too large to be left unmarked, I said. Yes, he said. It is time to divide it. He stood still. The cliffside and high path belong to us, I said. Only the dogs, only the trench workers. No prey enters, no birds enter. This is for movement and rest. He nodded. I will mark it. South of that, near the original pond, I said. That zone is for shade. It holds birds, frogs, insects, small prey. You will not let hooves near it. I understand. The zone beyond that with trees but space is for grazing. The prey stay there. It will be rotated. No animals stay too long. Nothing eats too much. We will monitor it. The last zone, I said, is open. It stretches beyond what we've built. You will not send any animals there yet. It is not ready. I have never gone that far, he said. I did today, I said. It is 10 times the size of the areas we use now. We will expand in time. We do not patrol it, he said. You will begin tomorrow, I said. No more than 2 dogs. You will mark the corners. You will test the earth. No prey enters. Yes. I looked at him directly. This is now 4 zones, I said. Ours, the shaded water, the grazing land, the open land, no overlap, no confusion. He nodded. The pack will follow. I will watch, I said. He said nothing more. I walked up the ledge and lay down. From here, I saw the zones clearly. The trees near the pond, the trenches beyond them, the grassland where the gazelles grazed, and far, far in the distance, the edge of the new land. I closed my eyes. The valley would not be rushed, but it would be shaped. Chapter 17, Visit to the Rock. The valley was strong. That morning, I walked from the ledge to the shaded pond. A cluster of birds had nested in a new tree, and 2 young gazelles drank from the shallows without alert. The dogs had rotated grazing groups again. The system moved on its own now. Nothing needed my direction today. It was time to move outward. Scar had not reached toward the west, not once. His focus remained locked on Pride Rock and the herds at the center of the savannah, but his territory was weakening, not by force, by apathy. The lionesses still hunted, but the kills were fewer. I'd seen it in the herds drifting toward the basin. Their movement had begun to shift, slowly, naturally. But it wasn't enough. If I wanted the valley to be full, I could not wait for his rule to collapse on its own. I needed to act while he still believed he held control. I needed to take what I wanted before others began trying to take from him themselves. So I would go to Pride Rock. Not as a rival, not as a predator, as a guest. I left the valley alone. I walked the narrow ridge eastward before dawn. The winds carried the scent of buffalo and dust. My body moved easily. The earth was packed. The journey took hours. I stopped only once to drink from a standing pool near a fallen tree. There were no lions in sight, no hyenas, no dogs. When I reached the outskirts of Pride Rock, the land changed. The grass was shorter, worn. Hooves had trampled it for too long. The air was dry. The wind carried less life. I approached the edge of the inner territory just as the sun reached its highest point. Then they came. 20 hyenas moved from the ridge near the stone paths. They formed a half-circle in front of me, growling. Their teeth were bare. They didn't speak. They moved forward in short steps, each waiting for a signal. I did not move. Then a voice came from above. Let him pass. The hyenas stopped. They backed away without protest. I continued walking. I climbed the slope slowly, deliberately. My claws tapped the stone path. Scar stood near the ledge, alone. His mane was thin, his shoulders narrow. He watched me without moving. I reached him and stopped. He stared at me. He tilted his head. What do you want? He asked. Nothing, I said. I came to see what happened to the lion I once heard about. He blinked. You came to mock me. No, I said. I came to look. He shifted his weight. Are you here to threaten me? No, I said again. I need some animals. He narrowed his eyes. You came all this way to ask for prey. Yes. He raised one eyebrow. And what do I get? Nothing, I said. You don't lose them. You don't feed them. You don't protect them. They walk in your borders, but they give you nothing. You let me take them. They belong to someone who will use them. He looked away for a moment. Then he smiled faintly. You have a valley, he said, out west. Yes. I've heard the herds are drifting toward it. They are. He watched me, and you built it. Yes. You are not a lion. No. You have no bloodline. I have results. He exhaled slowly, and if I say no, you won't. He stared at me in silence. Then he shrugged. Fine, take what you want. I nodded once. Scar turned from the ledge. He walked away. Nice doing business with you, Scar, I said. Yeah, he muttered. Then he disappeared down the slope. I turned and walked back down the ridge. The hyenas followed. They did not speak. They did not walk too close. I led them through the inner plains. We passed several herds, buffalo, wildebeest, zebra. They grazed in loose clusters, half watched by a few bored lionesses. I chose the herds carefully. 50 water buffalo, strong, not too old, not too young, tight formation. I moved around them, marking scent trails in the grass. The hyenas flanked them, barking softly. They began to move. 50 wildebeest, lower ridge. We took them slowly. They were faster. We pushed from the side. They ran for the first quarter mile, then slowed. They followed the buffalo. 100 zebra, scattered, loud, nervous. We chased them gently, no claws, no teeth. They ran toward the ridge, then found the scent trails. They followed them. I did not lead them to the valley directly. I curved the trail away from the cliff. I let them see nothing. The dogs had removed all markers near the outer trench. The hyenas followed behind. They pushed from the sides. They did not hunt. They obeyed. When we reached the outer ridge, I stopped. The herds continued moving into the edge of the untapped section of the valley, the one I had not assigned yet. The grass was untouched there. The land had waited. They spread naturally. Some drank from a trench. Others grazed in the shadow of low brush. None ran. I turned to the hyenas. "You have done what I asked," I said. They panted. They watched me. "You may leave." They did not argue. They turned and walked back. They did not speak to each other. They did not ask to rest. They vanished into the grass as the sun lowered. I remained until night. The new animals did not scatter. The balance held. I walked the ridge slowly, returned to the cliff, and lay down. The alpha approached before dawn. He stood near the ledge and looked at the valley. "You brought them," he said. "Yes." "How?" I asked. He said nothing. "You will integrate them," I said. "Slowly, let them find water. Do not herd them. Let them adapt." "Yes." No hyenas followed. "No." "Good." He turned and left. I closed my eyes. Scar had given what I needed. Nothing more. And now the basin was full. Chapter 18. The Leopard Accord. The basin was stable. It was full. The prey herds grazed without fear. The dogs kept the territories in rotation. The trench teams had adjusted their digging schedule to support the newest animals: zebra, buffalo, wildebeest. None of the old balance had been lost. But strength was not measured by prey or by silence. Strength was measured by defense. If the Pride lands turned on us, the valley would not be able to fight back. Scar was weak, but he had numbers. More than 20 lionesses still served under him, and the hyenas had grown bold under his indifference. They did not expand westward, but they circled the inner herds constantly. If the valley ever drew their hunger, it would take more than dogs to keep them out. The dogs were loyal. They obeyed. They kept order. But they were not enough. If I were to fight Scar directly, I could kill him. If I fought one lioness, maybe two, I would not fall. But if Scar stood with 10 lions and hyenas at his flank, I would not survive. The dogs could not hold them back. I needed real allies. Not scavengers, not small climbers, not birds or foxes. I needed power. So I walked. That morning, I crossed the eastern ridge alone. I did not tell the Alpha. I did not give orders. I did not leave instructions. I followed the rising sun and passed through the boundary of the Pride lands. I kept to the high rocks, following the trails where the dogs would not step. My scent faded as the wind moved west to east. For 2 days I traveled. I crossed the open plains where lion scent was thick. I did not hunt. I did not mark. I drank from shallow pools and moved silently across the dry hills. At night, I slept on stone. On the third morning, I found her. The trees were thicker in this stretch of territory, northern edge, far from Scar's rule. The grass was low here. There were scattered rocks and a low pool near a thicket. I smelled the kill before I saw her. Antelope. Fresh. She had dragged it into the shade and covered it with dry grass. I approached slowly. I left my scent wide, making no effort to hide it. I did not crouch. I walked openly. When I reached the kill site, she had already stepped out of the brush. She was not large, smaller than me, but not thin. Her shoulders were packed with muscle. Her claws were visible before she moved. Her eyes watched everything. She crouched low, body between me and the kill. Then I saw them. 3 cubs behind her. Leopard cubs, small, not yet ready to hunt. 2 of them stared. One of them moved closer to the kill, then stopped when she growled. I remained still. She did not charge. I stepped forward once. "No hyenas here," I said. She didn't answer. No lions either. Still nothing. "I didn't come for your kill." She lowered her head slightly. I sat. "I came to offer you something." Now she moved, not fast, just a step, her head raised. "What?" she asked. "A place without hyenas." She blinked. "A place without lions," I said. "A place where your cubs will not lose their food to a bigger mouth." "Where?" "Far west," I said. "Past the old cliffs, past the borders, there's a valley." "I've heard about it," she said. "The one with water." "Yes." "Dogs guard it." "Yes." "You lead them." "Yes." "What do you want?" "Nothing," I said. "Not from you, not now." She narrowed her eyes. "Then why are you here?" "I'm not offering a den," I said. "I'm offering a future. You bring your cubs, you raise them in peace. They eat, they grow, and when I need them, they fight." She looked at the smallest cub, then back at me. "When?" she asked. "When Scar falls," I said, "or when he turns. And until then, you rest." "Why me?" "Because you're strong enough to raise 3 cubs without help, because you didn't run when I approached, and because you haven't died." She stood slowly. She looked back at the cubs. "Who are you?" she asked. "I'm Shere Khan," I said. "I rule the valley." She stared at me for a long time. "Do we obey?" "No," I said. "You respect the land. You don't kill what you don't need. You protect the balance, that's all." "If the dogs order us." "They won't." "And if they do?" "You kill them." She blinked. Then she nodded. "I accept." "Good," I said. "Bring them tomorrow. I'll show you the path." She nodded again. I turned to leave. Then she said, "I know more." I stopped. "More what?" "Leopards." "Where?" "North, hills past the dry pools. 3 mothers, 1 male. 1 alone, they keep apart." "Will they listen to you?" "Yes." "Call them." She left the next morning. I met her near the cliffs that night. We traveled north for 4 days. We didn't speak often. We found the others one at a time. Each one asked the same question. "Why?" I gave the same answer. Because the valley would need them. Because Scar was still king. Because strength meant nothing if it stood alone. By the end of the 4th day, I had them. 7 adult leopards. 4 females, 1 male, 2 older males who lived alone. 15 cubs. They walked with us back toward the basin. We reached the ridge by sunset. I stood at the edge and pointed toward the shaded zone. "You stay there," I said. "No dogs will enter. No prey will cross unless you allow it." One of the males nodded. I looked at the cubs. "You train them, they grow strong. They don't challenge the order. They kill when necessary, not for pride." The mother I met first stood beside me. She looked out at the valley. "It's safe here," she said. "Yes." "Will it stay that way?" "No," I said, "but it won't fall." I called the Alpha that evening. He stood beside me at the ridge. I pointed toward the shaded zone. "New allies," I said. He looked at the leopards, then at me. "They don't follow you?" he asked. "No." "They don't follow me?" "No." "Then why are they here?" "Because when war comes," I said, "they won't need orders." He nodded once. "I'll mark the border," he said. "No," I said, "they will." He said nothing. Then he turned and left. I lay on the cliff that night. The valley had grown. It had prey. It had order. And now it had predators. Scar would fall. And when he did, he would fall into something stronger. Chapter 19. The balance confirmed. The night air settled over the basin with the same calm it had held for months. Insects chirped quietly beneath the bushes. The frogs near the pond sang their low croaks, and the distant call of an owl echoed off the far wall of the ridge. I stood at the edge of the cliff, facing the east wind. The leopards had settled in. I could smell their markings along the southern side of the shaded zone. They didn't crowd the trees. They chose the rockier paths, the thinner trees, the dense patches of undergrowth where they could see without being seen. The cubs made noise at first, clumsy, unaware of the rhythm of this place, but their mothers corrected them. The dogs didn't interfere. They kept their distance. They understood what this was. The leopards were not invaders. They were not rivals. They were an answer to a question no one else had the courage to ask. I waited near the ledge until I heard the steps. The Alpha arrived from the lower slope. His paws were silent against the packed earth, but I could hear his breathing. He approached and stopped beside me, then sat down without speaking. He stared out at the basin. "The prey herds are balanced again," he said. "The new zebra haven't eaten through the grassline." "They were chosen carefully," I said. "More spring hares this season," he said. "The young diggers found 3 new burrow lines. Have them patrol the holes. Make sure none collapse." They already started. We stood in silence for a moment. "The leopards marked the trees," he said. "I know." "They've killed 3 frogs," he added. 2 birds. "They'll learn. They don't hunt for food. They teach." He nodded once. "You're not concerned?" he asked. "No," I said. "They're not pack animals." "I don't need them to be," I said. "They protect their own, that's enough." He looked down toward the shaded pond, where the new tree canopy darkened the ground below. "They claimed territory without asking," he said. "I allowed them." He gave a small grunt. "The dogs won't challenge them," I said. "But if one dies, you'll tell me." "I always do." "Then it won't happen again." He looked toward the ridge that marked the furthest patrol line. The same ridge where I had found dry grass a year ago, where no prey dared graze. "There are no lions out there yet," he said. "There will be." "Will we stop them?" "We'll choose," I said. "If you bring more," he began, then stopped. I turned slightly toward him. "Say it." "If you bring lions," he said, "they'll want more than a place to sleep." "I know." "They won't share." "I won't offer." He didn't argue. The Alpha stood. "I'll send 2 groups to watch the southern trench in the morning," he said. "Some of the new wildebeest are starting to drink from the deeper pools. The walls there are soft." "Have the diggers reinforce it," I said. "Flat stone if they find it, no more broken edges." "I'll rotate the trench teams." He paused. Then he asked, "Are you satisfied?" I looked out over the basin. The leopards were silent. The birds had quieted. The dogs had returned to their quarters. The prey slept. The trees stood still. "I'm not finished," I said. He gave a sharp nod and walked away without another word. I turned back to the ledge and climbed up to my perch. The stone was cool. The wind was low. I lay down and closed my eyes. The basin was alive. Scar was still king. But I didn't need his crown. Not yet. Chapter 20, The Warning at Dusk. 3 years passed like the slow growth of bark. The basin was full. Not crowded, not overwhelmed. Full, balanced. Everything I had planned had taken shape without collapse. The prey no longer migrated. They bred here, fed here, drank here. They gave birth in the tall grass near the trees, and they died by tooth or old age, not by fear. There were rules, rules shaped by necessity and blood and law. The dogs were nearly 500 strong now. 3/4 of them worked. The rest bred, rested, or trained the young. There were no weak adults. Those who had grown careless had died long ago in trench collapses or patrol fights. The current pack moved in structured shifts. The alpha still lived, though age had begun to slow his back legs. He still gave orders. His lieutenants now numbered 6. Each led a section of the valley. The leopards had multiplied as well. 15 adults patrolled the shaded zone. The cubs from 3 years ago were now hunters. They walked silently. They needed no correction. They bred only once each year, and they marked the southern trees with clear lines. No dogs entered there. No prey stayed too long. We had no lions. We had no hyenas. We had no fear. I slept that day. The sun had already begun to lower across the basin. The wind was still. It carried no warning. I was lying on the ridge in my usual spot, the cool stone beneath me, the sound of insects constant in the brush below. I didn't open my eyes when I heard the distant sound of paws against dirt. Dogs ran often. The trenches rotated teams by the hour. Patrol groups returned at sunset. I had no reason to rise. I remained still. I listened, but my breath stayed even. Then I heard shouting. Then I heard the scrambling. Then the voices. I opened one eye. "Wake up," one of them barked. "Lions, lions at the boundary." I opened the other. Another dog called from further down the slope, out of breath. They crossed the outer trench, southern ridge. I stood. No rush. I walked to the ledge. Below, dust was rising in wide arcs. The dogs were forming ranks, hundreds of them moving in layered rows, spreading to the right and left, drawing a thick line between the southern trench and the pond. No teeth were bared. No attack call had been given, but their bodies were tense. Then I saw them. Lions. Not one, not a pride. 20 at least. All lionesses. All walking in formation. Sarabi stood at the center. They moved slowly, carefully. The dogs did not charge. The leopards had not appeared yet, but I smelled them in the trees, watching. I walked down the ridge. Not fast, not slow. Each paw step pressed into ground I had built. When I reached the base of the slope, the line of dogs parted for me. I walked until I was 3 paces from Sarabi. She stopped. I looked at her. She had aged but not broken. Her shoulders were still straight. Her eyes were tired but clear. She stood in front of her pride like a shield. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "This is my territory." Sarabi didn't flinch. She answered plainly. "Scar has driven everything from the Pride lands. The herds are gone. The grass is dead. There is no food. The lionesses need to hunt. That is not my concern." She stared at me. "You have enough." "I made enough," I said. "This was nothing when I arrived. You remember that?" She nodded. "I do." I looked at the other lionesses. They were thin. Their ribs showed. One limped. "This land follows rules," I said. No one takes more than they need. No one hunts beyond rotation. No blood is spilled for dominance. We didn't come to take, Sarabi said. We came to ask. The dogs shifted behind me. Hundreds of eyes, no movement, no sound, waiting. Then Luna spoke from the left flank. The oldest leopard now, bigger than the others. She watched without blinking. They gave you this land once, she said. I looked at her. I remember, I said. You didn't take it. I could have. You didn't. I looked back at Sarabi. I will give you one gazelle, I said. Sarabi lowered her head slightly. You will kill it here, I continued. You will not take it back to Scar. We won't, she said. You will not feed him with my land. I would rather starve him. You can eat, I said, but you do not own anything here. She didn't argue. You may return, I said, once a week. No more, one visit, one kill. That's enough, she said. I turned to the alpha. Give them a clean one, mid-weight, no young. The alpha nodded and gave a short bark. 3 dogs peeled from the line. They moved back toward the inner grazing zone. I stepped aside. The lionesses waited. No one moved until the dogs returned, dragging a fresh kill. A young gazelle, clean body, no wounds. They dropped it at the lioness's feet. Sarabi looked at me once. Thank you. I don't care, I said. Follow the rules or stay out. She nodded. The lionesses began to eat. They didn't crowd. They shared with precision. I turned and began walking back to the ridge. As I climbed, Luna followed. She didn't speak until we were halfway to the cliff. You know they'll come back early. If they do, they don't eat. They might bring cubs. If they do, they don't eat. She stopped. I kept walking. At the top, I lay down on the stone ledge. I looked out at the valley. The gazelle carcass had already been reduced to bone. The dogs were dispersing. The balance held. But the warning had come. Scar had begun to break. And now the lionesses would look westward for what they had lost. I closed my eyes. The next time, I would not feed them so easily. Lion King, what if I am Shere Khan? Chapter 21, The Grass Beyond. The wind was still when I opened my eyes. It was not the stillness of peace, it was the stillness that followed movement. I knew the sound by now, feet on stone. Breath held too long. Then the low call of a dog, one I trained years ago. I stood. The ledge beneath me was warm from the morning sun. Below, the basin was calm. Birds circled the trees. Prey drank at the far trench. I saw no panic. That meant the intruders hadn't crossed far yet. I walked down the ridge. Dogs clustered near the southern rise. Not running, not bristling. Watching. That meant whoever had come wasn't a threat. Not yet. I stepped through the last rank. There were 4 of them. Lions. But not just lions. Simba stood at the front. Taller than before. Lean, no scar, no crown, but his posture said everything. He had returned for something. Beside him was a lioness, Nala. Her eyes met mine first. She didn't flinch. And behind them, 2 strangers. A meerkat and a warthog. The meerkat was already trembling. He ducked behind Simba and grabbed his leg with both paws. Simba, he whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. Simba, what is that? Simba said nothing. The warthog stepped forward anyway. He's a tiger, the warthog said. I've seen those stripes before. Back when we wandered too far north, remember Timon? I remember Pumbaa, the meerkat said, still hiding. That one almost ate you. You think this one's gonna eat me? Pumbaa asked, genuinely confused. If you keep talking, maybe, Timon hissed. I ignored them. I stopped 5 paces from Simba and looked him in the eye. "What do you want?" Simba hesitated. It was Nala who answered. "He's the true king of the Pride Lands." "I don't care," I said. She stepped forward. "We need help. Scar's rule has collapsed. There's nothing left." "Good. He needs to fight him," she said. "But there's too many hyenas, too many lionesses still loyal to fear. We need an edge." I looked at Simba. He didn't speak. I waited. Then I asked, "You want my help to kill Scar?" "Yes," Simba said, finally. And restore the Pride Lands." I turned slightly. My claws scraped against the packed dirt. "Why would I do that?" I asked. Nala's voice was calm. "Because you know Scar's rule won't stop at the Pride Lands. He'll turn here next." "No," I said. "He won't. He doesn't have the strength." "Then why not ignore us?" Simba asked. "Because I want something," I said. Simba raised an eyebrow. "What?" "Walk with me." I turned. They followed. The dogs gave way as we passed. None followed. None needed to. I led them along the eastern ridge, through the shaded zones, past the trees and trenches. Pumbar paused every few steps to sniff flowers. Timon clung to Simba's shoulder.